Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, Africa. It's been over 14 days now after the incident of Ngarbuh, where over dozens of people lost their lives, including women and children, in this incident known as the Ngarbuh incident, which international condemnations have brought to book. This problem that has been causing a lot of propaganda, and now the head of state, Paul Biya, is also calling for investigations into the matter. We are looking at this today in Views on the Continent. What is going to become of the people of Ngarbuh after this massacre, which the international body, the national body, and equally local media are reporting that over 20 people lost their lives, whereas the government reports give other remarks or other informations. So we get to this information today, we get to this topic today, we put it on the table for you and our viewers all over the world to tell us what you think about this Ngarbuh incident, where the head of state, Paul Biya, has decided to create a commission of inquiry to get to the root of this matter, to investigate, and he has given a total of 8 days maximum to bring out definite results. What is going to be the reaction of the world? What is going to be the result of this investigation? And is this going to bring peace back to Ngarbuh, as many people are still crying for justice for the innocent souls that were lost in this incident? So we talk about this afternoon in our program Views on the Continent, our interactive program which invites you across the world equally on our Facebook page to view and give us your remarks. You can leave your remarks on Facebook or or you call us through the numbers that are going to appear on your screen to give us what you think or your own take on the topic that has been tabled for you today on the table Views on the Continent. So without so much ado, we have in our studio this afternoon Mr. Fabrice Lena. He is the National Communication Secretary of the Popular Action Party and equally stand up for Africa, or stand up for Cameroon rather. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon, Miss Rita. Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon, Cameroonians. Good afternoon, militants of the Popular Action Party and members of the Stand Up for Cameroon's movement. It's a pleasure for me to be part of this noble program.
All right, the pleasure is ours equally to welcome you on our platform Views on the Continent on your Pan-African television. All right, we get now to give you details of what this topic is going to be all about, but for you to get the details, Louise Bidben has more on that with this report. Louise Bidben, let's get to it and we'll be back in the studio.
After the shocking incident of February 14, 2020 in Ngarbuh in the restive northwest region of Cameroon, where civilians, including women and children, were massacred in their numbers, President Paul Biya has, after 14 days since the incident occurred, created a commission of inquiry into the killing whose perpetrators are yet to be identified. According to the Cameroon government, the barbaric act has drawn in national and international condemnation, with major actors like the United States, the United Nations, France, and a lot more mounting pressure on the Biya government to carry out an urgent and independent investigation into the killing and bring to book the actors. However, the incident is just one among several other killings recorded in the two regions on a daily basis as the crisis deepened, with more killings reported after the Ngarbuh massacre. Notwithstanding President Biya's fact-finding mission, which many believe has always made news only at the level of its creation, might be a little late in investigating the matter, as international organizations such as the Human Rights Watch has already produced results of its finding in which it stated that more than 20 civilians were killed. The report from the right organization contradicts that of the Cameroon government, which had earlier denied the involvement of the military in the incident, as well as figures of the number of people killed. President Biya's inquiry commission was dispatched on February 27, 2020 and has 8 days to produce results. The announcement was made by Governor Lele L'Afrique during a walking visit to Ngarbuh village in Ndonga Mantum division of the Northwest region. Same as many other inquiry commissions created, Cameroonians and the world, however, await the results, if at all it will reach them, and whether it will be concrete and transparent, since several sources have pointed accusing fingers at the government forces, including that of the Human Rights Watch, which outrightly accuses the government forces and armed ethnic Fulani for killing at least 21 civilians in Ngarbuh village, including 13 children and 1 pregnant woman. While the whole world may be waiting or vocal to condemn the outcome, the war in the two regions is still ongoing and innocent civilians continue to pay the huge price.
Thank you, Louis Bidben, for giving us an insight regarding what happened on the 14th of February in the English-speaking region of Cameroon, in the northwest region precisely. So in our studio this afternoon, we have in our company Mr. Fabrice Lena. He is a member of the National Communication Secretary of the Popular Action Party and equally stand up for Cameroon. So Mr. Fabrice Lena, what's your little impression about this Ngarbuh incident of 14 February that saw the brutal snatchment of the lives of civilians, including women and children?
I will first of all start by saying the Popular Action Party condemned these killings of innocent civilians, such as children, pregnant women, and women. It is really a very sad situation that we find ourselves in Cameroon today, and we all know that the government and the president are guilty of causing the Anglophone crisis, and they are bent on seeing that the people of southern Cameroon are in this deep sorrow, this deep mess that we are in today. The Ngarbuh massacre is one of the massacre in this Anglophone crisis that is going to bring down this regime to its Waterloo, because you know, you can be killing people, you think you will go free with the blood of everybody, but I take the biblical allusion that it's only the small David that brought down Goliath, which was something that nobody ever expected. The same too in the Anglophone crisis. Don't be surprised that the Ngarbuh massacre will be what will finally hit the nail into this Biya'S regime. You know, it is a regime that had always caused pain to its own citizens as far back as the eras of our joining the French Cameroon in 1961. Mr. Ambia, the president of the country, is responsible, is aware of breaching, abrogating the treaty that gave the people of southern Cameroon the nationality of Cameroon people. And when you cancel the very treaty that made us to be Cameroonians, of which we have our identity and culture, you are the one endorsing secession. You are actually the one giving people secessionist ideas. And if today the citizens, the national community, the international community is calling on you, the government, to solve the problem appropriately, and all the time you keep creating commissions that are defunct, they are incapable of producing any fruit. Unfortunately, in Cameroon, Cameroonians who have ideas, youths that are energetic, people who are babbling with ideas, have no power. And those who have power have no ideas. That's the paradox in this country. And we find ourselves in a situation where we are losing dear lives every day. Let me recall here to people out there that every human life is precious and priceless, should be valued. And the first element of every Republican and so-called professional military of a country is to protect its own population. Territorial integrity second, and the government last. Unfortunately, in Cameroon, the military has decided to protect a group of people, which is the government, against the population in the name of maintaining the territorial integrity of the country. I don't know if between the territorial integrity of Cameroon and the population of the people of Northwest and Southwest, who have genuine reclaims of socio-political facets, things that is life in 21st century, are the ones to suffer the consequences of their genuine demands. However, I know justice will take its course, because as far as the Biya'S regime is concerned, it will never yield any fruit. You see the communique of the Minister of Communication accusing and saying the Human Rights Watch group is just making allegations on the professional military of the country and the government. This is not the first time that we are seeing the massacre of citizens ruthlessly by this regime in the northwest and southwest. And I recall in 2016 or 17, if I'm not mistaken, in the northern region with the Boko Harams, the children that were killed with women, very little babies that were killed with women, the same government, the same military with the same president refused the allegations until the Amnesty International group proved otherwise. Okay. They said it was from Mali. So it is not the first time that the government is coming out to tell blatant lies to Cameroonians about atrocities they are committing to the very people they are supposed to protect.
Okay, it could be blatant lies, but we do not yet have confirmation about that. That's why the head of state, Paul Biya, has called for an inquiry to get detailed investigations and to bring proper results. Although we could say that these are contradictory, because before then we had one part of the military that published a report and saying that there was some confrontation, but it's just about five people that lost their lives.
It was not the military, it was government authorities who came out with official communique claiming that the Ngarbuh massacre or incident was a collateral damage of fight between separatists and the army and the military, which means that it challenges the very reason of an independent commission of inquiry or investigation that the government is claiming to put in place, because they had already taken the conclusion. And at the same time, I want to say here that the communique that was released yesterday at midnight by the Minister of Communication still reiterated and maintained that the massacre was still as a result of clash between the military and the separatist fighters. So yeah, we ask ourselves, you have already drawn a conclusion and you are still taking a premise, and at the same time you are accusing the report of another group, which is an independent group. They have no interest in discrediting the government of Cameroon, and you are saying their report is conspiracy against the government of Cameroon. Why should they conspire against the people of Cameroon when the government of Cameroon has conspired against the English-speaking population, against the southern Cameroonians?
Mr. Fabrice Lena, the government spokesperson René Emmanuel Sadi, in that his press conference last night, said that Human Rights Watch, equally like several other groups, had been quick, like you equally said, to publish false balance sheets of regrettable incidents. I describe it as it says, without having carried out a visit to the area or neither carrying out an investigation. But is this true? Because we have the human rights agents of the Human Rights Watch who say they carried out investigations.
That's why I want to say that when the government used the word quick to carry out reports, you see, this is one of the highest problems with this government. We're talking about human lives, and people are still dying on a daily basis. And you say a human rights group is quick to establish reports on issues concerning human life, to render justice, to stop more killings, to stop more burning of houses? No, we should not take issues about human existence, human life, living with such triviality and levity. I think that the government denying the report of the Human Rights Watch is just as usual of the government. It's as usual of the government. It's a government that has lost credibility, legitimacy, and even legality. In fact, no government is actually existing in Cameroon, because we are a junta republic. We are in a government where the citizens are left on their own to function the way they want to function, and then those who claim to be the authorities to save the citizens are saving themselves. So we are in the government for the government, by the government, for the government, a government of the government and the military. Citizens are not concerned in this country about the management of the country. And if the situation of the northwest and the southwest is where it is today, it's because our government is proud and arrogant to the advices of those within the country who are seeking, working every day with every atom of their energy to see that this crisis is resolved, and those in the international community that has been giving proposals to this government to end this crisis. They know and they have read the documents on how to genuinely solve the Anglophone crisis, but they give damn ears. Why? Why? Mr. Ambia, who is the president of this country, in 1984 was the person who abrogated the law of 1961, the Accord of 1961 that brought the English people together, bringing about the name that French Cameroon got its independence with. How will you make people who had nationalistic and patriotic feelings or sentiments to feel? It was from there that all this began. And I remember very well, Fongoji Dinka wrote a letter to the presidency telling him that this issue of cancelling the Federal Republic of Cameroon, with whom brought the identity of the two people, will cause problem in future. They gave deaf ears. In 1990, with the coming of multipartism, when the tripartite was held in Yaoundé, they came with resolutions that gave birth to the 1996 Constitution. In the 1996 Constitution, decentralization and other reforms were carried out, which have never been implemented between 1996 to 2020. That is 24 years. What do this government want from the people? Mr. Ambia went to Paris and told the whole world that he is aware of the Anglophone crisis and how they have been struggling to assimilate the Anglophones. You are guilty of causing the Anglophone problem, which means all the bloodshed, be it the military, be it the amber, be it the civilians caught between the two traps, it is on your shoulders, on your head, as the leader, as the president of the country, who is supposed to, who has mastered the problem, to come out with genuine solutions. But when you keep allowing the solution and you are chasing shadows, coming with cosmetic solutions, creating defunct commissions, creating institutions that will never come out with any truth, what do you expect the people to do? You can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the time. At least Cameroonian youths like myself and other people out there are now conscious of the deliberate attempt by the government to keep us captive, to keep us remain naive, so that they will always continue to triumph with their ways of manipulating to stay in power forever. But I tell them that this Ngarbuh massacre, the blood of these innocent children that were poured on Valentine's Day, on the Lovers' Day in Donga Mountain, is going to rise, is going to shaken the ancestral spirit of Africans, and it will bring justice to this country. If not legal justice, it will be natural justice, because they have failed in the moral domain, they have failed in the legal domain to carry out their responsibility as the leaders of this country. And I think that we need to do something. We need to stand up for our country. We need to fight in order to see that this regime end as fast as possible, in order to save lives that will die with their continuity in power. Okay,
we will come back to see if it is a change of regime that's going to be the solution to this problem or something else. Right now, given that the numbers are already on the screen and callers are already on the line, we get the first caller on the program to give us his own impression about this. Hello and good afternoon. Hello, are you online? Can we get you? You're live on the program.
Well, you know, regarding the issue of the creation of a commission of inquiry into the Ngarbuh massacre, I must be able to be honest with you that the move put in place by President Paul Biya is a move that certainly will not be able to give what is expected to the population and to the world at large. In the first place, you get to understand that the government has made a series of errors that shows that the government is surely trying to hide something, so to say. Now, when you look at it, you understand that the errors come in the fact that you cannot get an incident that takes place. Government removes 5 different communiques from 5 different departments. We've had the communique from the communication officer of the Minister of Defense. We've had the Minister of Defense himself with his own communique. We've equally had the Secretary General of the CPDM with his own communique. We've equally had the Minister of External Relations with his own communique, which he issued it for a while in Swiss or in Switzerland. And then we've had 2 communiques issued by the Minister of Communication, Emmanuel René Sadi. So when we look at all of this, all the communiques come out with some disparities that are found in it. When you get the government, so to say, tells you about explosions or explosives, talks about confrontation, talks about only 5 dead, which contradicts the general report done by international media organizations and also a declaration made by the Bishop of Kumbo Diocese with names of those who have been killed already established. When you get a report from Human Rights Watch and all the like, I think that the government itself is totally confused. When we say confused is for the fact that what the government should have done, which they failed to do, maybe because their thinking caps are not on, would have been for them to come out and to tell people to stay calm. Meanwhile, they will get to the crux of the matter. Now, when you come out and say it was an explosion, it was a confrontation between separatist fighters and the military, you had explosions with containers of fuel that was being stored in this area, then they'll start asking, what are you then investigating? Because these versions came out from the government, denying the number of persons who were killed, denying that there was nothing like an attack, but there was confrontation. Now, with the controversies we find here, when you, the government, through the Minister of Defense, through the Minister of Communication, through the Minister of External Relations, through the CPDM party itself, give your own part of the story. Now, the question now is, what will the Commission of Inquiry be meant to do now? What role would that commission put in place by President Paul Biya be doing? When the state has proven to the world, beyond reasonable doubt, that they know what happened and they have given their own version, even though it contradicts what is on the ground and what even the family members of Ngarbuh, those in the village, those in Tumbo have said. So at the end of it, we come to look at it that this is another kind of a fake commission that is created just to surely calm down things and to deceive the United Nations and the international organizations and the world that the government is bent on bringing out the perpetrators of the act. If the government is serious in this case, then if it is creating a commission of inquiry, it should be a commission that should be made up of neutral persons. You cannot be accused of a crime and you are the one going to investigate yourself. I mean, we are no longer fools. Yaoundé should not think that people have become so illiterate that they cannot decipher the good from bad. You cannot tell me that you have been accused in a crime. Instead of you taking the initiative as you want to put in place things to be on the limelight by looking out for neutral persons who have nothing to do even with the government to come and do their independent findings, you decide to take the initiative to put in place your own commission. Now we now ask the question, who are those who will be in that commission? When you gather government officials, GOs, governors, so to say, and put in that commission, do you expect them to write against the government? So I think that Yaoundé should not think that people have become fools, that they will be manipulating them day in, day out. We would have expected the government to even apologize, to even send words of condolence to the bereaved family, declare a day of national mourning, before coming up with this so-called commission of inquiry. It is a total disgrace that the government keeps toiling with the lives of innocent Cameroonians while deceiving the people that he is bent on bringing about peace and on getting the perpetrators to book. This is all farce, and we think that the government should be honest enough. The errors they have done in their various communiques is just a pointer to show that the government knows exactly what happens, but not the government is better placed to investigate her own self. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Far Elvis, for your intervention on the program this afternoon. For those that are just joining us, this is Views on the Continent. Will the Inquiry Commission of President Paul Biya bring in a solution or justice to the victims of the Ngarbuh incident? Is what we are talking about today, and the lines are on already for you to call us and give us your own contribution. So, Mr. Lena Fabrice, we have this caller who just gave his own opinion, and he said lots of things. He first of all mentioned an inquiry commission that is made up, he believes, of the same members of the ruling party or the ruling government, and he thinks this is just a monotonous activity. He's criticized a lot of things, and he equally said that there have been some contradictions, likewise what you just mentioned earlier, that there have been some contradictions between the reports that have been published by the various bodies of the same government. How do you analyze this whole situation?
Yeah, I would say that, you see, the government is confused. Yeah, the government is confused because, you know, when you are too old and the people surrounding you are also old, it's difficult for you people to think properly, especially when you refuse to take youth that are proactive and reflective to surround yourself with it, but choose to take those ones that are there to satisfy their belly and stay quiet. It is rather very disappointing that the government of Cameroon is fooling people that they want to carry out investigations. All the investigations they have been carrying out about the different killings and massacre. We talked of the baby that was killed in Muyuka some time ago. No investigation, no justice had been done. We talk of the Pinyin massacre, where young children and young people were killed in Santa subdivision. No investigation, no sanction carried out.
You know, there are usually investigations, but we don't get the feedback.
What happened in the extreme north. So all these things tell us that the commissions created by the regime is just as cosmetic as the regime itself. You cannot investigate your own crimes. Yes, because as of now, the government of Cameroon is guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Evidence that they know what to do to solve the Anglophone crisis, but they are refusing. When in your communique you keep calling the Amber Boys terrorists, I wonder whether you are not the one who pushed them to become terrorists. Because from the history of Cameroon, it is the same authorities who refuse to make these people. They are working very tirelessly. They cannot have roots. They cannot have good schools. They cannot have basic necessities. Roots everywhere. It is so bad. Which society will live in that type of situation where they are working back bent down, and then a group of people are enjoying all the benefits of their hard work and hard labor? Even the taxes that they are paying, people embezzle, nothing is being done to them. And so the people were frustrated with all these things. When they came out to march, what happened? Beaten, brutalized, insulted with every word and actions. So the government is guilty. When people came and said, no, let us sit on the round table and discuss how to solve this problem, rather than this violence, because it's easy to give people gun, but very difficult to take it back. And it's also easy to give army mission that go and take care of security situation in this zone, but army are there to shoot and kill. They are having arms. It will be very difficult to stop them when they are in the field to do what they are being done. And most of these people, be in the side of the Amber or be in the side of the military, sometimes when they are in their operations, they are on drugs. They are not themselves again. And some of these things they are doing out of subconscious. That means they are not normal, because their judgment and reasoning has been impaired by the things that they consume before going on war front. And the political leaders are the problem. The political leaders are the problem because they knew exactly what to do. The Popular Action Party, for example, had been proposing that in order for us to come out of this Anglophone crisis, we must revisit the 1961 constitution, sit on the round table and negotiate. What were the aspects of this constitution that had not been respected, that made the English people to be angry, that made the Anglophone problem to become so prominent in the late 1990s, in the early 2000s, and right up to 2016. If we go back to this constitution, we remove the elements of this constitution that had compromised the freedom, the place of the English-speaking, the southern Cameroonians into this union, then everything will be solved. As of now, opinions hold in different diversity. Yeah. We have those who want that we should refederate, go back to the federal system. We have those who don't want anything to do with the government again, and the government is the cause of their decision.
All right.
And we will have those that think that if this government goes out of place, we can still sit and arrange it, because as of now, Cameroonians have problem with the leadership of the CPD-MBR regime. That means if this regime is out of place, it will first of all calm down people's tension. First, it has stayed in power. Secondly, it has caused political impasse. Thirdly, it has divided Cameroonians on multiple fronts. Fourthly, it has caused underdevelopment, poverty, a country with everything. People are now living in bondage as slaves, living miserable life, hyperinflation. It is terrible. Okay. Violence every day. It's something that is really a call for concern.
Okay. Mr. Fabrice, permit me. We get this other caller that has been insisting from the United States. It is Mr. Mbena calling from the United States. Good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon to all the listeners and followers of Africa.
Can we get him?
I would just have to give a quick contribution to what's going on in Cameroon. Yeah, and I think our politicians are not honest enough, and we need to avoid, it's just a suggestion, bringing them to the panel, because each time you have politicians, everybody will try to drag the cover on his own side, blaming the government, blaming whoever. Now we have NGO involved saying that they have satellite images before and after all what happened. But what's so sad that they don't have the images of those killing the civilians, those killing the military. They don't have the images showing the position of people who are fighting to have Cameroon divided. The truth is that for those who don't want to see, is this Mr. Biya'S succession, that this fight is all about who's going to take over from Biya'S. Whatever dialogue you're going to put in place, it will not solve this issue unless Biya'S give them what they want or step down so they put whoever they want to control our resources. And I would like to, in a suggestion, to bring people who knows history of Africa, historians and anthropologists, because right now, when this thing started, they wanted to put Francophone speaking against Anglophone. It failed because most of the IDP are living on the area that people speak French. Nobody never attacked them. So, and when this one will fail, tomorrow will be Bamileke against Beti against, and we Africa, we are so stupid, sorry to say that, we keep talking about the same thing every day. Yesterday in South Africa, it was Christian against Muslim. Why are we fighting for something that does not belong to us? French, English, what does that mean? Because honestly, I don't see, I'm somebody from Douala. I don't see any advantage I have in the government than somebody from Bria or from Aminda. It's all lies. People who are taking advantage of the government in Cameroon are recruited all over Cameroon. All over Cameroon. So it has nothing to do with people are marginalized. That's not true. The reality that people don't want to accept is that they are fighting who is going to take over Cameroon. Even though you bring on the table today, you release everybody, you give everything they want, they will tell you, no, it's not enough. We want independence. Still, they are still that we want our independence. So, my suggestion is to bring those who know the history of Africa, because it's, and tell those in the bush, don't let yourself be a sacrificial lamb for someone. Because if people sit abroad or on the TV and they say you are right to fight, why can't they join you in the bush and fight with you? But instead, they use you to achieve their goals.
Hello?
We have seen that happening over and over again. So that was my contribution. Thanks for all what you're doing for Africa, and God bless Cameroon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mbena, for participating on the program. Your opinion has been taken into account. We continue with our panelist in the studio, Mr. Fabrice Lena, the National Communications Secretary of the Part and Stand Up for Cameroon. So, Mr. Lena, the Ngarbuh massacre has drawn national and international condemnation since its occurrence, and this has, has been able to bring comfort to the affected people, and could these condemnations in any way stop further occurrences?
Well, I will say that the international organizations are gradually going back to the before the First and the Second World War kind of governance of the world, where it was a talking workshop or toothless bulldogs. You know, the Anglophone crisis started in 2016. We are in 2020. Killings has been exhibited on the social media every day on daily basis, and evidences has been shown on people dying every day. We have millions of people internally displaced, those that are refugees now in the different states of Nigeria, those that are now doing odd jobs and even increasing crime waves or involved in negative externalities due to the crisis, and those that they are victims of the circumstance. You know, the international organizations, community and friendly countries are not supposed to just be condemning. We condemn, and so what? And so what? We need action. It is not a matter of condemning, because it's about lives, Because these things, people need to live in Bamenda, in Boya, in Kamer, in Kumba, in Muyuka, or in for you to understand what is going on in that area. People are unable to live freely. People are unable to eat freely. It is difficult. It is a conflict that is supposed to be given immediate attention, immediate resolutions to be executed. I think from the report of the Human Rights Watch, from the proposals of the representatives of United Nations, African Union, friendly countries, America, France, Germany, and so on, we need bad action. The war in the Northwest and Southwest have taken a lot of souls already. In part, I standing here, I have lost a lot of young people, friends and family members, that you just sit and hear, this person has been shot dead. This person has received a stray bullet. This person was in the market and this happened. This person had been kidnapped, and so on and so forth. Whether it is the side of the military or the side of the amber, every life is precious and priceless. This war has to stop. And the authorities that are using this war for their personal benefit should know that later or sooner, we, the younger generation, will make sure that justice must be achieved in this country, because they think that they will get away with this. Many of those people managing the affairs of this crisis are the ones that don't want this crisis to end. And they are the one manipulating the presidency with wrong informations. And since the man is old and don't also want to leave power, it's difficult for him to be proactive and see that the collaborators with whom he's working to solve the crisis are not genuine and don't want to solve this crisis for their personal benefits.
Okay.
Yes. So I think that the suffering has been at its apex. People had suffered a lot. People had suffered enough. People are still suffering. I think the local humanitarian NGOs and our correspondents of the Popular Action Party, that they are in the different war zones and in the Yaoundé and Douala areas, have been giving us statistics of people in hospital, people in deplorable conditions, people. It is terrible. The Cameroon now is a shadow of itself in Central Africa, West Africa, and Africa as a continent. A shadow of itself. The mighty Cameroon, the Africa in miniature. Why do our leaders think that it is by remaining in power that will make this country to go ahead. Let them resign. It is very simple.
Okay.
Let them resign and let's reconstruct a new Cameroon. It is very, very simple. They have caused us a lot of pains, and youths are now indulging into violence. Very few youths are now into constructive ideas, and you can see evidence from what is happening in Yaoundé. Teachers killed on daily basis. In which country do you see they said a teacher has been murdered by its own student? Nobody is saying anything. Nobody is saying anything. It is bad. It is bad. And the spillover effect of the Anglophone crisis is touching all the other 8 regions. Because I want to let people know here that security challenges is in the northwest, southwest, Adamawa, east, north, and extreme north. Those are regions that are affected by different security crises. And when we talk about security crisis, it's a matter of life and death. Meanwhile, in Yaoundé and in Douala and the other remaining regions of Cameroon, there is first of all what we call psychological war. There is war in the mind of Cameroonians. When they get up in the morning, they cannot eat their daily bread. There is war in the mind of the youth when they cannot get salary that merit their knowledge. There is war, psychological war, and this war is about to burst. If the authorities know what is good for them, let them address and solve the problems of the youths, of the Anglophones appropriately before it gets out of hand. They should not drag this country into a civil war. They should not drag this country into a civil war, because the persistence of the civilian regime to continue refusing reports and advice of international organizations, of Cameroonians of good faith, of good political parties and civil society organizations and movements that reflect aspiration of Cameroonians like the ones we are working for. It is high time they should understand that the Cameroonian people are no more in the post-colonial era of the dark continent where there was no internet or informations were being hyped away from the people to understand. I want them to understand that we are in the modern Android technological world. No information can be hidden again from the people, and it is time for them to understand that the people have recognized all their tricks. Yes, the people have now known how the government has been manipulating them, and that is why the naivety of the population is decreasing gradually. Cameroons, Anglophone and Francophone don't have problem. The problem of Cameroon is bad governance, and that is the principal problem. With good governance, I'm telling you, this country will have been a mirror of the world, mirror of Africa. Cameroon's main problem is bad governance, and that is the principal problem, and what we are standing to denounce with all our energy and all our blood.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fabrice. Okay, in the same light now, we talk about the Catholic bishops around the world, the United States, the United Nations, France, Germany, and others that have requested an independent and urgent investigation into this matter. Can we now say that President Biya is bowing down to pressure, or could this just be the will of the government, which, however, has denied any involvement in the incident?
You know, from my studies that I have made, I've realized that when a regime is about to fall, the representatives of the regime become unnecessarily stubborn. Yes, that's what happened to Mobutu. That's what happened to Idi Amin Dada. That's what happened to Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And Blaise Compaoré and the others. You know, there are moments in the life of a country where change is inevitable. It is autonomous. It is like colossal consciousness of the population that at this moment in time, things have to change. So you see that in the recent years, because of the Anglophone crisis, there has been magnified increase in political consciousness in Cameroonians. Until people now understand what is elections, what is election boycott, and so on and so forth. Because in the recent years, people were not interested simply because they knew that whether you do or you don't do, the people in place will continue and they will manage affairs of things. But people are becoming cautious. And the international community, Britain, France, and the others, like I said before, it is their responsibility. It is an obligation for them to see that this crisis ends. I say it's an obligation because I am a Pan-African. The Europeans had also contributed greatly for us to find ourselves in the situation that we are today. during the union that brought us into this mess of governance that we are today, Britain played a great role to make sure that we are not an independent country as people of Southern Cameroon.
Yeah.
France played a great role to make sure that they imposed neo-colonialist doctrines that gave Mr. Ahidjo power as first president of Cameroon. Normally, based on the history of Cameroon, Mr. Ahidjo was never supposed to be the first president of Cameroon. And when his successor, the present president of Cameroon, took power, he continued with that neo-colonialist tendencies. And I'm saying that the European powers that had any colonial effect in Cameroon, like Britain, France, and Germany, have that they are oblique to see into it that they work in synergy to help Cameroonians that are standing up for their country to solve the problems of Cameroon. Meanwhile, it is the responsibility of the United Nations as the only international organization of the world that has to seek for security and peace of the people to make sure they intervene. I don't know if they want to wait until a whole village is being razed, or 50,000 people are being burned, or the massacre that will be equivalent to the Rwandan 1994 genocide will take place before they come.
But
I
Mr.
think
Fabrice,
it is high time.
It caused me to
they
ask myself the question, like the same worry that most of our televiewers and equally others on Facebook watching us now. When you call on the international community and the international body to intervene, is it that you think the African body or the African Union and African countries on their own cannot handle their situation? Could that not be some form of interference?
Well, I would say that very few African states are actually sovereign. That's the paradox. That's the truth and reality. Very few African states are really sovereign. And secondly, the CEMAC zone, presidents of the CEMAC zone are puppets to France and the other Western powers, because they have proven their incompetence in solving the simple issues within their country. Our own president went to France and told us in an interview that he gave report of the national dialogue to the president of France, who is supposed to be his grandson, Macron. And the same president went to another resolution, whether it's meeting or whatever in France, before telling us that he knows of the Anglophone crisis and has granted special status to the people of. So you see, those are things that make us to feel bad as Africans. That why will you leave your own country to go to France before making declarations?
Okay.
Why should you leave your own country and go to France before coming back with new changes or reforms?
Okay.
And then at the same time, when these people want to say that you have committed excesses, you should not do this, you say you are a sovereign country. It's a paradox. It's hypocrisy. It's lamentable. It's laughable. You see, so it is so bad that our head of states they are not really sovereign to the extent that they can manage their affairs. When we call this international community to come, it is not to come and put us injunctions to sign deals that is going to enslave the future generation.
Yes.
That is what we stand against.
Yes.
And that is what we don't want any leader after the present regime to be such neo-colonialist puppets of France.
Okay.
No. The people have to choose their leader based on the doctrines of a transitional government that will be put in place after the president.
And very democratic.
Very, very democratic.
Okay, we get to the call center and get the last caller probably for the program this afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon, Rita. Good afternoon, panelists in the studio. Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon, African media. I am N. John Stanford, calling from Douala in Cameroon. It's a shame. I am so disappointed and my heart bleeds to hear that the government wants to create a commission that will go and investigate the killings. Investigating their own actions or whose action? We remember that on several occasions, President Biya declared that if the restoration forces of Ambazonia do not drop their guns and come out of the bushes, they will suffer the wrath of the Cameroonian Republican Army. Now the soldiers who were being sent there by the government have now abandoned their duty of fighting the restoration forces, and now they have started pouring out their wrath on the innocent civilians, children and women. Soldiers always act on instructions. So if soldiers go out there and do whatsoever they do, commit whatsoever atrocities, instructions came from somewhere. We should stop fooling ourselves. Why should we continue creating commissions? There was a commission of bilingualism that was created. Up till today, we have not seen where it has led us to. The commission of disarmament, we don't know what they are doing. Now a commission has been created to go and investigate killings. Is the government saying that the Cameroonians in that part of the country don't know the difference existing in between the Ambazonian fighters and the military? Because from all the eyewitnesses who were on ground, their report says that the military came in with Mbororo, who were armed, and they did carry out the massacre. I don't know what the government still wants to investigate. Why should they continue creating commissions instead of seeing into how they will solve this problem so that the carnage can end? So that this war can come to an end and the people of those communities start living their lives normally. I see my foul play in this. I see my a bite and blow game. I think the government should end this war, call for ceasefire, and let things come back to normal in those communities. Ngarbuh is located under a village called Tumbo, which is located in under the subdivision Ndu, under the division of Donga Amantum. These are the people who suffered the same scenario in the 90s, where women were being pierced in their vaginas with broken bottles by the military, and they vowed that they will not vote the CPTM in their lifetime. And after the twin election of February 9, we have an incident of this nature. I think that the government should end this war, because we cannot be criticizing. We cannot stand up and say that we condemn atrocities and we encourage the war. It is the war that brings the atrocities. If we want the atrocities to come to an end, we should stop the war. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Afrique Media, and thank you for the program. And I appreciate you and say you should continue your program. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Jones, for calling. So now we are left with just very few seconds to the end of the program, of which I'd like to get the last opinion of my panelist in the studio, Mr. Fabrice Lena. In your capacity now as an analyst and an advocate for peace and human rights, what have been your achievements? Because I've been following you on Facebook and I see your publications and I see how active you've been concerning the rights of women, rights of children. What have been your achievements so far in 2 minutes?
I think I've been working with several humanitarian NGOs. I've also been working with civil society organizations, and also with my political party, the Popular Action Party, to ensure that the little we have in the small things that we can do in a difficult economy, we share with these people who are in need, because it's just a privilege that we are who we are. So we have to close the gap of one. That's first. Secondly, we have to, in our capacity, seek for justice through coalition of barristers, lawyers, and civil society activists, to act as one voice to defend the voiceless, to stand up for people who cannot stand for themselves, to talk on behalf of people who cannot talk for themselves, and train Cameroonians on citizenship education. That's what I do every Friday. Train Cameroonians on citizenship education, building of people's power, and my slogan is always the people first. Yeah, building the people's power, the people first.
Is it under the Lena Bilingual Academy or under Stand Up for Cameroon?
That's under Stand Up for Cameroon and the Popular Action Party. That's under the party and the civil society movement, Stand Up for Cameroon. So it's on that note that I'm doing all these things. And I want to tell Cameroonians, let's keep up the zeal of working hard to see that political transition is achieved in this country soonest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fabrice Lena, National Communication Secretary for the Stand Up for Cameroon and the Popular Action Party. So it is with this note that we pull the curtains on the program's Views on the Continent this Friday, 28th February. It was a pleasure having you all tuned to the program and your participations equally. I say a big thank you to the technical department that made it possible for this program to be aired. The programs on Afrique Media continue. Your Pan-African debate is tomorrow 3 p.m. with Emmanuel Anyoki. Have a wonderful weekend.